Kia ora mai koutou. Oh, great to have you with us, Tony Wallace. And Tony, of course, always good value to talk to on these shows. Tony, last week I went out responding to an article in the Manawatu Standard, and that article quoted Parliamentarian Ian McKelvey, National Member for Rangitike, saying that the Sky City deal between the government and Sky City for the convention centre was a good one, and I objected to that and said why. Since then, I'm pleased to say that there's been quite a bit of opposition to the idea from such quarters as Treasury, and I think perhaps if we start with Treasury and go back through the argument. Treasury is opposed to the Sky City deal for two basic reasons, so far as I can see. One is that they can't actually see the economic value of it, and two is that the premise that we really do need another convention centre in this country seemed to them to be faulty. So with that, I throw the ball open to you, Tony. Your comment on the commentary.
It's interesting that the Treasury report has become public at this time. I'm not sure exactly how it became public, but it has finally been released quite some time after it was written. The Treasury also thought we were getting a bad deal because the government was in a poor bargaining position, because the only company it was dealing with in this was Sky City, and that is quite extraordinary in a sense that you'd think if the deal was to build a convention city, they'd be looking at all options, but from a very early stage in the negotiation process, everyone except Sky City was excluded. A very unusual and, what could we say, worrying development, which we've known about for a long time. But the point Treasury made is because they cut off other options so soon, they were very much in the lap of Sky City when it came to negotiating, and they'd taken a lot of their power away.
Yeah, well, you've got a broader picture here, which is that the government is rewriting law for a business interest. And this is what worries me, and I compare it with the bill that's being passed with respect to spying in this country, which seem to have attracted all sorts of opposition from all sorts of respectable people, such as the Law Society and so forth and so on. And I'm wondering why we haven't got that sort of wall of objection from those areas with respect to the Sky City deal. I mean, it's bad enough that we have the Treasury opposing it, and what is the justification if the Treasury opposes it for the government going ahead with the deal? I mean, I think that's one point. The other point is the deal itself, which, as you rightly point out, favours one party incredibly.
Well, it does make you wonder about what the government's motivation is. If it doesn't make sense economically, interest rates an all-time low, the government doesn't need Sky City's money for this, let's face it. And if I can get a home interest rate at 5%, I'm sure the government could get it at 3%, and on 500 million they just need to bring in 15 million a year to pay for the interest cost. It doesn't stack up economically, and because if it did stack up economically, we wouldn't be needing to finance it with gambling. So if it doesn't stack up economically, and it doesn't stack up socially because of the harm that gambling does to our society, then on what basis is the government going ahead with this?
And I mean, let's think of other things that the government might do. I mean, the government might encourage tobacco farmers, for example, to plant more tobacco in Nelson, given that it has a good relationship with cigarette companies.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a similar situation to this, because there you have an addictive health risk with cigarette smoking and nicotine addiction, and here we have gambling addiction, dopamine, the dopamine flow, the whole business of people getting hooked and addicted to gambling and being a health risk as well. In my mind, there's no difference at all, and I mean, even if the government was getting into very, very close relations with any business at all, any particular business, it could be forestry, oil, transport, media, whatever, it's not healthy. It's simply not healthy. And I think we've seen that in various ways with, for example, the key government and the film industry,
Yes.
and labour relations. I think we've seen it with the key government and Media Works and various other things that have gone on. And I think that the proposition that if it's good for business, it's good for Aotearoa, well, if we look at the harm gambling does, there's no substance at all to this. I mean, there's no sense in doing what we're doing. It's actually an entry into harm.
Absolutely. We do have to ask ourselves, what is the function of government and why do we have laws? And to my mind, the function of laws is harm minimisation. We have speed limits in towns so that people don't go driving down streets at ridiculous speeds, knocking over people and killing them, And so the whole point of laws is to restrict our freedoms for the good of society. And this seems to be giving carte blanche access to vested interests to exploit people for their own personal profit, and that is completely reprehensible.
Yeah. Well, I think you've raised an interesting point too with respect to media. You mentioned that earlier with you weren't sure of how the Treasury document got leaked. I think it's worth raising the point about having been leaked, or if it was leaked, because I don't actually think it was leaked. I think it was just somebody searching for it and finding it. Where did it then go? It didn't go to Television 1 and 3 and their news bulletins. For some reason, if it did, I missed it, and it wasn't very big. It was featured in the Don Post to a certain extent, and full credit to the Don Post for that. And it's appeared in, I guess, the Herald and various other places in quite obscure places. But it hasn't been featured. I mean, here you have a clear gap between what the government's doing and what the advice of its Treasury is. Quite a big gap. What is that? Is it because Sky City has a big influence on the media, do you think?
Oh, absolutely, unquestionable. Some years back, it was not a long time, 2 or 3 years ago, there was quite a big kerfuffle about the Sky City ambassadors. And if I remember correctly, Mike Hoskins was one.
Yeah.
And these people had their membership cards that gave them special deals in Sky City for whatever Sky City gives them, possibly meals and drinks, I don't know. But you have to ask yourself about the corrupting influence of those sorts of practices upon our watchdogs, which are the media, and also on our politicians. Even the Labour Party politicians were getting in there in the corporate boxes. And
well, the opposition from the Labour Party is distinctly underwhelming. I mean, just stay with that for a minute, because if I've got it right, and every so often I look at this deal and think I cannot have this right because it's such a preposterous deal, we have a situation where if Labour gets in, they can't change the situation apropos of Sky City.
Oh, they have this deal as it's written. If the government does anything like promote gambling harm reduction strategies that reduce the amount of gambling, they could be sued by Sky City. This was one of the Treasury's things that they thought was quite outrageous about this whole thing. It's in the Treasury reports. If you want to go online and find them, they can be found. So yeah, absolutely. The $400 million cost, if they change the rules, the way the law is written, the government can be sued. Also, the government is planning on putting a covenant on the land that this thing will be built on, so that it cannot be used for any other purpose.
Yeah.
So if the council blocks it and says we don't want a casino here, well, they can't do anything else to the land because it's got a covenant on it.
All right, just in conclusion, we have John Key telling us and going ahead on the basis with his National Party that this is a good deal. It's a good financial deal. we have one or two people actually saying it is a very good deal anyway.
Mm-hmm.
One of these is Ian McColby, and I've dealt with him, and people watching this today can go and look at the other clip, which is on this site. The other is the Morrison point of view, Morrison being the head of Sky City,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the unfortunate things that I found in his long article, given huge prominence in the Dom Post, was that he says we're not on a par with Australia. So his argument is essentially that because New Zealand doesn't give outfits like Sky City in particular the same kind of breaks that the Aussies give them, and he lists them in Adelaide.
Yeah.
We have this, and this, and in Brisbane we have this, and this.
Yeah.
And why don't we have this, and this here? And we're behind. The general idea is that we're behind.
Yeah,
I mean, why didn't the guy give us Las Vegas
They-
and say we're behind Nevada?
Well,
we're out of step with Nevada here.
Yeah, well,
Or what about
what-
Babylon? You know, we're out of step with what went on in Babylon. I mean, this is
well,
crazy.
absolutely. And even then, his figures are deceptive. Like, he quotes having 2,500 gaming machines in places like Sydney and Adelaide, which are damn sight bigger than Auckland. Well, currently Auckland Sky City's got over 1,200 gambling pokie machines, courtesy of that very same article where he lists it later on. And so on a population basis, we're probably ahead of them.
Well, on the money basis, there can't be much wrong with it, because I understand each one of those machines returns $11,000 a quarter. That's $44,000 a year.
That's standard pub ones.
Well-
That's a venue grade 4. For the casino ones, I think you'll find the paybacks are even bigger.
You were kidding me. And they've got how many hundred of these things?
They've got 1,200 currently, and they've got another 250.
All right, well, we're going to close it there. But I mean, one of the problems I have here, just addressing the people watching this for a minute, is that every so often you find a topic which seems to be an absolute no-brainer. We should not be going down this path, and on so many grounds. Moral, the fact that you're helping people get addicted to gambling and the wrong people. And the day I actually see a stop sign or a deflection sign for buses coming in from South Auckland, where I'm from, outside Sky City saying, you know, we're not encouraging you people to come in by buses every day, that'll be the day, I suppose. We're seeing this closeness to business actually being wrong. We're seeing the change in law, which means that if the government changes, the law can't be revoked. Now, it's really the minutiae that Tony was talking about, the little things such as, such as covenants and a whole host of small restrictions, if you like, that can't be changed. And furthermore, we're seeing a government going ahead in the face of its own treasury.
Yeah.
I think we'll stop there, Tony. I mean, I just can't see that we're just running over the same old stuff now. I mean, I think so far we've gone over things. That's good. But I think if we just keep on running over and over and over, it becomes a little silly. But we must keep talking. We must keep saying why. Why are we doing this? You're with Peter Cleave.
Before we head off, Peter,
yeah.
there is something you can do, anyone who's interested. This has had its first reading in Parliament. It is currently going through Select Committee. The submissions close, I believe, 22nd of August. You can write a submission. You can write to your MP, particularly if you've got a National Party MP, and ask them what you think you're doing. You know, this process has not gone through yet. It's not a done deal. It is time for people who are concerned, like ourselves, to make our voices heard, and now's the time to act.
Here, Tony. Thank you for watching this. You've been with Peter Cleave and my guest today, Tony Wallace.